Hi everybody, welcome to episode 24 of Ask an Adventurer, in which you ask me questions, please do that, and I answer them as best I can. You can ask me about anything that might be helpful for you to know about. Right, first up we have Ben, who says, I'm cycling slowly down Africa with my wife and our surfboard. Jealous. I spend time thinking and writing about my plan to work with teenagers or schools back in Australia to inspire them. Would you be able to share your 3 biggest challenges when talking to 12 to 17-year-olds to keep them enthused and to have a genuine impact with your talks? Wow. Well, first of all, Ben, I don't think you're going to have any trouble enthusing 13, 17-year-olds with your story. I've looked on your website and your Instagram, which, by the way, is duck_whispering, and you just doing fantastic stuff. So you don't need my advice on that. You'll be absolutely fine. And I think what you're doing is great. If you don't know about Beau Miles, look him up as well. He's a very inspiring Australian role model as well. But let me try and think. Challenges to keep people enthused. Don't make your talks too long. Allow plenty of time so that people can ask you questions, which means that they can ask the things that they're interested in, not what you're just guessing about. And try to be as relatable as possible. People who see you coming to do a talk might just assume that you are some sort of super athlete to be cycling so far, or mega rich to be able to have such an adventure, or in various different ways just not relatable to the people in the audience. So what you want is for people to not just think, wow, this is a great unattainable guy, but they want to think, hey, I could do things like this as well. So try and think about all the ways in which you are relatable to the people in the room. Wow, good luck. Next question, how realistic is it to make your entire living off adventure and adventure-related work? And if so, what are some of the steps to get there? Well, it is realistic. I've managed to make my living out of doing adventure-related work. I think the real challenge is to remember that you're not just going to go from 0 to a salary that will just fund your entire life. So how are you going to pay for your life until you get to that point? So you will need some other job, some sort of income with which to pay all the bills, and gradually over time you can start doing more adventure related work and less proper work, and that transition can be quite gradual. You can't just go from nothing to making loads of cash out of an adventure. Not least of all, because first of all, you need to somehow get enough money together in order to go on a big adventure, in order to tell stories, in order to be interesting, in order so that people might want to hear your stories and pay you for them in some sort of way. So it's not a instant thing. You need some sort of job to pay for life until you get there. However, you can do it. What are some steps to get there? Well, first of all, you need to do something really interesting. You need to find some sort of big adventure which crucially is important to you in your heart, but also hopefully will make some good stories that other people will enjoy. Next step is you need to think about how you're going to tell that story. Are you going to tell your story to inform and teach other people and be like a useful resource, like a guidebook sort of approach, or are you going to be inspiring people to do adventure things? Are you going to be trying to give a message about stuff that feels really important and you convey that message through adventure? For example, climate change, nature loss. Or are you just going to entertain the heck out of people and just be a really interesting, exciting, funny person? What is your unique selling point? What's your point of difference going to be? And at all times, remember that if it doesn't feel true to you in your heart, 1, you'll get bored of it soon and you'll stop grinding at it, and 2, it won't really come across as real to anyone else. So don't try and copy anybody else, just do the things that feel real to you, but remember you have to be adding value to the universe if anyone's ever going to give you any cash for that. What's something that adventure has taught you that you wish more people understood without having to cycle around the world to learn it? Gosh, Well, I think the biggest lesson I learned from cycling around the world is that the world is essentially a good place full of decent, kind, good people just trying to get on with life as best they can, and that the problems in the world come from a lack of understanding, a fear and unknown of others. And in that sense, I think that travelling is such a good way for breaking down so many of the problems we have in our society. The world's a good place. It's not what you see on TV. Go explore it and share the good news. Being a writer, you often turn personal experience into books. How do you balance telling a good story with protecting private parts of your life? Yeah, this is an interesting question, because there's lots of ways you can go about living some sort of public life on the internet. You see lots of people who share all the time photos of their families, their kids, their lives, and that's sort of weaved up with the more work-related side of their internet stuff. And that's fine if you want to do that. This is going to sound ridiculous for someone who's talking narcissistically down a camera, putting it online so that people can look and listen to me, is that I don't really like people knowing me. Like, people who don't know me, I don't want them to know about me, and I just don't like that at all. It makes me really cringe. So for me, there's a huge separation between the me on the internet showing off about myself, telling stories, whatever, about stuff, and then there's all my real life away from that, and they're very, very, very separate for me. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but it's the way I do it. Next question. You're clearly fit and strong these days. Yes, thank you. But has your motivation shifted from adventure ready to something more everyday? Why do you train now? That's a really interesting question, because actually this year I've been really struggling with motivation for exercise, which is so frustrating, because I know that when I exercise a lot, I feel better, I feel happier, everything is much better. But I kind of struggle for motivation, I guess, because I'm not training for a big expedition. When I was training to row across the Atlantic, I'd go to the gym, sit down on the rowing machine and just row for 2 hours. No way I could motivate myself to do that if I don't have an actual ocean to row. So I guess these days my exercise is about stuff that feels fun. It's about knowing that I never regret exercising, and that it's so good for my physical health, obviously, but also mental state of mind. And also, now that I'm a middle-aged man, look how grey my beard is. Oh my goodness. Now that I'm middle-aged, I'm very much conscious of sort of trying to future-proof my life. I want to be someone who's, when they're 50 or 60 or 70, still out and about and active. And I see so many people in their 40s and beyond just sort of give up and think, oh, I used to do lots of exercise, and then give up on that. And I don't want to be that at all. And therefore I must keep going, keep future-proofing myself. And I do this by trying to run, because that's good for my heart, and doing heavy strength work, because that's good for your fighting osteoporosis, stuff like that, and by trying to do more and more flexibility type stuff. So kettlebells and stretching and body weight things, just to try and future-proof myself so that I can keep heading up the hills for hopefully decades to come. Religion. Are you religious? Your work often feels deeply spiritual. Wow. I love these questions. Am I religious? No, not at all. I grew up in a Christian background and school, so I spent a lot of my life in Sunday school and churches and things, so I know all the theory. But cycling around the world, when I was suddenly then in entire parts of the world that didn't prescribe to the Christian religion that I'd been taught for my entire life, but still were seeming to be very religious, decent people, I was like, hang on, these can't both be right. Either that story is right, or that story is right, or none of them are right, but they can't both be right. And therefore, which team do I pick? So these days I'm very atheist these days. But I don't think that's incompatible with not feeling awe and wonder and beauty and a sense of purpose and wanting to be a kind, good person. So I think there's a lot that you can take, that I could take from religion in terms of a sort of how to live guide, the golden rule, those sort of things are very good. But religion not for me now. I suppose if there's any philosophy that guides me the most these days, it would be Stoicism. I've read quite a lot of books on that, and I find that the most personally helpful tool for thinking about how I want to live and controlling how I feel about life. Essentially it's this knowing how's the old the Serenity Prayer go? Give me the courage to accept, to change the things I can, and the serenity to accept the things I can't change, and the wisdom to know the difference. That sets you off on a lot of good things heading down there. So yeah, probably Stoicism has been very helpful for me. And a sort of spin-off for that would be ACT, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. There's a fantastic book called, what's it called? I think it's called How to Be Happy. Terrible title, really awful front cover with like a yellow smiley face on. But I found that and Stoicism are really helpful. Okay, next question. If you had to do an adventure dressed as a banana for an entire week, where would you go and what would you do? Wow, an adventure dressed as a banana. Wow, love that. Well, part of banana-based adventuring is about the humans you meet along the way. So it would be quite fun to walk through a place where you'd meet lots of people. But then I'd also have to have a lot of banana bantery stuff, and that's kind of make me cringe and be a bit introverted and awkward. So I think what I would do is I would find the most remote trekking route in the world where I'm not going to see a single human being, and then I would trek through that empty wilderness dressed as a banana, feeling amused to myself. Isn't all this talk of finding adventure close to home just a convenient excuse for settling down, getting soft, and not taking real risks anymore? Ow, burn! Finding adventure close to home. Is it an excuse? No, it's not an excuse, but it is a symptom of some of those things you mention of the fact that my life's changed, so that I have settled down. I also have got soft. I do not have the ridiculous drive to go and do epically masochistic expedition stuff anymore. And since I had kids, my propensity to take risks that put my life very much in danger just in the name of adventure is gone as well. So those things have changed in my life. And so I suppose then the question was, well, but I still want adventure and be outdoors and exercise and be curious and be enthusiastic. I still wanted all those sort of things, but I wasn't going to go all the way around the world to get it anymore. And therefore I started looking close to home to find adventures, and then micro adventures, and even smaller since then. My new book, Local, and then actually the book I'm writing now, which is even smaller, about getting 15 minutes out into nature. So not surprisingly, anonymous questioner who doesn't like that what I'm doing, I think will be pretty disappointed with my next book. What's the moment you look back on with real embarrassment? Something you got totally wrong on an expedition or in your work? Well, this is a tiny one, but randomly it popped into my head yesterday. About, gosh, I don't even know how long ago it was. 10 years ago or something? Maybe even a bit longer. It was when I was actually really, 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 really busy. Someone sent me a message on Instagram essentially saying, hey, can I just pinch a bit of your time and do a video call with you to ask questions about something? And I publicly replied along the lines of, how dare people always try and pinch my time? This is outrageous. And not surprisingly, I got a huge amount of comments instantly just saying, what a horrible thing to say. You're an idiot. And I quickly saw the error of my ways, deleted it, apologized profusely to the person whom I'd said it about in public, did of course do the video call with him. I don't know why that popped up in my head yesterday, but that was a real got it wrong thing. Generally, what I try and do, if I want to rant about something on the internet, I prefer, what I do instead is just shout really loudly in my shed and then don't rant about it on the internet. I found that to be a much better approach. Which of your own books would you choose to burn in a campfire and why? Wow, oh, my own books. Wow. Which of my own books? Well, ironically enough, seeing as this is Ask an Adventurer, my Ask an Adventurer book has been an epic commercial failure. Doorstep Mile book, that's sort of self-help. I get torn between that because, you know, if the self-help book gets you at the wrong time in your life, you hate it. So that has had some real criticism, but it's also, I know, really helped people. So what would I burn? It's quite nice actually, because I quite like it. Makes me feel quite proud of my books and a bit protective. So I guess I'll just have to go to Ask an Adventurer, as that was commercially fail. What was the personal belief you held 10 years ago that you've completely changed your mind about? That vegetarianism is understandable if you want to be kind to animals, but that vegans are weird. When was the last time you felt genuinely, metaphorically and spiritually lost? And what did you do next? Gosh, wow. I've found life really hard in many ways ever since I stopped cycling around the world, which is now 20 blooming years ago, and here I am still talking about the same stupid bike ride. So I've been feeling very vaguely lost, and one could argue, I suppose, that I perhaps began cycling around the world because I was a bit lost. What did you do next? Well, generally going for a run kind of helps a lot of things. Going for a run and writing down a list of things to be grateful for. Yeah, I'll go with that. Yeah, sorry, I've slightly sort of fizzled out now. Well, I hope they were interesting questions. If you would like to ask an adventurer any question before I throw the book on the campfire, please fill in the form below and send me your questions. Thank you, bye.